Welcome to another edition of Road to Reason. I'm Elizabeth Cornwell.
And I'm Autumn Reinhardt Simpson.
And we've got a very special guest today, but before we go on to that, we're going to be talking about a few things. One, of course, is asking you to keep us in mind when you make those donations to help keep us going. We really do appreciate that. And they'll be on the bottom of our screen right there. You'll see how to get in touch with us and how to donate. And we will be accepting call-ins today to ask our guests some questions. And I think you'll be very interested in what she has to say. Another thing is we're looking for atheists, people who have decided that there is no supreme being guiding the universe, but who maybe takes into consideration things like homeopathy or Bigfoot or 9/11 conspiracies. And we'd like to talk to you and find out why you believe in these things and how you apply your skepticism to religion but not to other things. So if you would like to be on our show, give us a call or contact us via email and let us know if you're one of these atheists who are, in our view, maybe not quite as skeptical as you might need to be. Another thing I want to mention is that C.S. McKinney has volunteered to do some marketing and outreach for us, and we just wanted to say a big thank you for his volunteering. And Autumn, I think you have a little bit of news as well.
Yes, straight out of Virginia, where we're at right now. We are looking at House Bill 207 here in Virginia. It is sponsored by good old Dickie Bell, Richard Bell. He's from the 20th, from District 20. And what it essentially does is it gives sort of the open back door for teaching creationism in public schools. So naturally, this is something that atheists, agnostics, or really anybody who believes in teaching sound science in schools should be aware of and should probably get in contact with their representatives about. This is really detrimental to the education of children, and you can find details about this bill on the website of the National Center for Science Education. You can also check with your local representatives to make sure they understand how you feel about the idea of teaching creationism to public school children. The bill does not explicitly demand the teaching of creationism, but what it does is it allows for the teaching of competing theories. So essentially creationism. So definitely get in touch with your representatives, let them know how you feel about that, and spread the news.
Wow. Good old Virginia. Of course, now I understand there are also a number of states that are passing trying to pass similar bills. And again, every time we go to court with this, our side ends up ahead. We win
right.
Every case. However, what people don't recognize is how much money is wasted in the public schools and by the government, and we're all trying to control all that extra spending in government, that the government is the one that ends up having to pay the legal fees when we go in and say, hey, this is, you cannot do this, remember Pennsylvania, and no, you guys are always going to lose, but we have to go through these battles each and every time. And it takes people like you to help us with these battles and to write to your representative and check out the National Center for Science Education website, because they'll talk about each and every one of the states that this is happening. And it just happens again and again in each state, and Virginia's just one of the lucky ones as usual. We have some wacky ones here, but anyway.
Yes.
And I want to get on to our guest. Her name is Lori Hodgson, and she is an ex-Scientology member. She was just recently on Inside Edition, so some of you may have actually seen her on Inside Edition. She has left Scientology, as I mentioned, but her children are still trapped within it. And so, Lori, welcome to our show, and thank you very, very much for being with us today.
Yes, thank you for having me back on your show. I'm looking forward to it.
And we're going to be talking, let's talk about your children first. You have a son, Jeremy, he's 20, and your daughter, Jessica, is 23. And they're both Scientologists. There you are with them. It looks like a very happy Christmas. About how long ago was that?
A little over 3 years ago.
Okay. And so let's talk a little bit about what happened with your children and how you were a member of Scientology. You started when you were about 13, you said? And
yeah, I was 13 years old.
So obviously you were still a Scientologist at the birth of your two children? And
yes, I was.
And you raised them within the Scientology, I guess, do we want to call it a religion? Do we want to call it a cult? Do we just call it Scientology? And how did things happen after they reached adolescence?
Well, it happened to me. I had a buzzer go off. When I was 13, I started Scientology, and at 15, I got recruited to join the Sea Organization, which is the group that, it's the highest group in Scientology, and basically you sign a billion-year contract. And you never get to see your parents very often, and you just dedicate your life to Scientology. When they approached me, I got a sick feeling in my stomach, like, no way. So I would hide from them. Whenever those recruiters came near me, I just knew I didn't like it. I don't know why. I heard that kids didn't get to see their parents very much, but I really was it was a secret, the things that I found out later I never knew about until my children got recruited and went through it. So to forward to when my kids, my daughter's the oldest, her name is Jessica, when she was 15, she was recruited to work for Scientology behind my back. Her father, who's a very dedicated Scientologist, I was divorced at that time, took her down there, and they recruited her. And it was amazing because my daughter, I got her out of Scientology school after the divorce. I put her in public school, and she was getting straight A's. Wanted to be a veterinarian. We went and looked at schools, just loved school. After 3 hours down at Scientology, she was completely, all her dreams and goals were washed out. She was manipulated. She wanted to drop out of school and dedicate her life to Scientology. And I was like, what? She said, I'm scared to go to school now. The psychiatrists are going to take over. Mom, there's drugs everywhere. I haven't even heard this until right now.
So are these things that the recruiters were telling your daughter that kind of existed in the so-called outside world, or?
Right, and public school is so bad. They just want the kids to be trained in Scientology schools, or better, they would like the children to get a GED and dedicate their lives to Scientology. And I think my own opinion as a parent is they recruit children at that young age because they haven't had their schooling. They haven't had all their high school to be able to have good critical thinking skills. And when you're 15, most kids don't like school. My daughter did. And when they're told you get to go to a resort, there's lots of pretty girls and pretty boys there, and you guys will save the world, and you're going to do this for your parents. It's heavy brainwashing. Right. And in 3 hours, it happened to my daughter. And I fought it. I was very unhappy, and I fought it heavily for 7 months. And I tried everything I could internally in the organization, and just got beaten down, and finally agreed for her to go back to her Scientology school. And little did I know, they graduated her when she was 16 with a diploma.
Wow.
So I started seeing a lot of things I was unhappy with. And then my son's situation was even worse.
So you're probably very sympathetic with Katie Holmes, who, even out of Tom Cruise's mouth, said that the divorce had more to do with their daughter Suri and what Scientology was trying to do with their daughter. So you can probably really sympathize with that.
Yeah, most definitely. In fact, I shared my story with her father, Katie Holmes' father. So I'm sure she read what happened with my kids, and this was around a little bit after when I found out that she was not happy with things. But she was afraid of her daughter. At 7, being recruited like my kids at 15 and being taken from her. I mean, you don't get to see your kids. I talked to my son 5 times in 7 months.
So, I'm sorry, I just wanted to ask you, you started to say that, that the recruitment was even worse for your son, and I was just really curious what you meant, and if you could fill us in a little bit on how recruitment affected him and what kinds of pressures he was put under.
Okay, he saw everything that happened with his sister, because after Jessica had joined Scientology, got her diploma from the non-accredited school, she joined staff and was unhappy and wanted to come back home. And after about 3 to 5 months of being on staff, she accumulated a debt of $12,000. And this debt was because they put her in counseling to ask her why she wanted to leave, or is it because of her parents? I mean, it was all interrogative type counseling. Here's this girl, 16, and has a $12,000 debt.
Right, because they bill for everything.
Everything.
Basically everything that you get, unless you're a superstar like Tom Cruise, they bill you for.
Right, right. When I was fighting about my daughter not joining staff for 7 months, I was billed all that. Thousands of dollars because I disagreed. I mean, then they couldn't break me until I finally agreed she could go back to a Scientology school, but little did I know they'd graduate her in 3 months. It's hard to win when you're against a church like that and then their father. So my son saw this and he's like, Mom, I'll never do that. There is no way I will do that. I mean, he was just like, he saw 3 years of it. He was 12. Now my son's 15. He wasn't even taking classes at that time. He was in 9th grade. He was on the football team, doing really good. I had to go in for a knee surgery, a knee replacement. I was just recovering. I was home for about a week. My ex-husband took my son down to Scientology, and they recruited him to join the Sea Org, which is the one where they make them sign a billion-year contract.
It'll go by quick.
Yeah, my daughter was just staff. This is the Sea Org. This is like, I'll never see my son. You don't, for number one, I was against it, but you don't send your son. So they sent Jeremy to see me when I was recovering from my knee replacement. I was on high levels of Oxycontin. I couldn't walk. I had the wrong size knee put in my knee, so I was really bad off. And literally, they had recruiters slamming on my door to take my child from me.
Wow.
I mean, it was, and so I got no rest. I ended up going back in the hospital, almost died because I had an ovarian cyst rupture and pneumonia. And my son, I would not agree. I fought this for 6 months. I just got broken down. I knew I would lose him to the disconnection policy if I wouldn't agree. I had to go back in the hospital for my second knee replacement. And that's when my daughter came in and said goodbye to me because she joined the Sea Org on day 2 of just getting out of the hospital, in the hospital. So, you know, how they recruited my kids was not only awful for them, it was pretty bad as a parent for me because I didn't have a fair fighting chance.
It's pretty devious.
Yeah.
It is.
Can you explain?
And they took me, they did it when I was at my lowest.
Can you explain, just for any viewers that aren't familiar, what the disconnection policy is within Scientology?
Sure. The disconnection policy is if anyone who's a member and leaves, okay, like I left because of what happened with my children. I could not believe it. I'll get into that in a little bit. But I resigned. I said, I don't want any part of this organization. I resigned. I told my kids that evening, and they said, oh my God, Mom, you can't do that, because we're never going to disconnect from you, so we'll lose Dad. I said, I'm not making you choose from anybody. I just don't want to do it anymore. And after what happened, I knew I was starting to lose my kids because the church was talking to them about disconnecting from me. I went public about it. If you leave and you go public, or if you're critical about anything in Scientology, any member that's still in Scientology are forbidden to talk to you. They can never talk to you again.
Right.
So it's like shunning, but it's worse because they also intimidate you and you know, do things to fair game you, do you in.
Right. So
I can't talk to my kids. They're not allowed to talk to me. I have no phone numbers, no addresses. They're blocked on Facebook. They're ordered by the church to do this.
Yeah, I've read the book by Lawrence Wright. Are you familiar with that book?
Yeah.
That book is pretty accurate, you think, in terms of how Scientology works within, you know, as an organization. I mean, some of the stories that he describes of how parents and children are separated from one another is pretty astounding to me, that it continues to go on and nothing seems to be happening to stop it.
Right. I personally know many families that are going through this heartache of disconnection. And I told my son that when I saw him with Inside Edition, and he said he knew. I'm like, oh, good. He must be looking, because he's not allowed to look, but that kind of gave me a clue that he might be starting to look at things. And
I just wanted to say, too, that while we're on air here, there's an open invitation if Jeremy wants to call in. We have the number, or soon, coming up at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, please give us a call.
Jeremy, give us a call. We'd like to hear what you have to say as well. But also, I'd like to hear, Lori, tell us about the Inside Edition thing. You mentioned that, and I think our viewers would be very curious to hear about that.
Okay. In the past, I have been followed, I have been stalked, I have been threatened by Scientology members, and even my flights are tracked. And so the last time I saw my son, luckily I was able to get there without Scientology finding out, because I talked to someone how to do that. And I shared my story with Inside Edition. I just decided to write them and share my story, and heard back from them the next day, the senior producer, and he said, you have a very compelling story. We would like to be the first ones to put you on national television to share your story. How would you like that? And I said, yeah, I want to tell my story. For number one, it will tell other parents, you know, what to look out for. And I never want another parent to go through what I've gone through. Also, I've heard if I'm really noisy and tell my story, better chance of getting my kids back. Because they'll hear, why is their mom doing this? You know, they can hear my side. And that's what Scientology doesn't want me to get near my kids, because they don't want them to hear what happened. Well, I got that chance with Inside Edition. They were at first going to come to my house and film my story in my son's room. I kept it the same. Then he called me up and said, how would you like us to give you an opportunity to see your son?
Wow.
And I'm like, well, how? I mean, I was just like, what do you mean? And he said, we will take you there. We will fly you there secretly. We will get you there so you have a chance to see your son. I was like, I mean, I'm like shaking just from thinking about it, because I just to have that opportunity was like once in a lifetime. So we planned it about 6 weeks later. We had to get it all approved with the Inside Edition attorneys and how we would go about it. And when we got to his work, we didn't know if he was working that day. And my mom saw his truck, and so we waited around the back for him to come out. And I jumped out of the van, and I saw him, and at first he was super excited to see me, but then he saw the cameras, and he got nervous because the Dr. Phil show was, they wanted me to be on the Dr. Phil show, and they were calling my kids to join me on the show, so I'm sure my son thought that was the Dr. Phil show. He didn't, yeah, he thought, oh my God, you know, and he's not allowed to be around a psychologist. When you're in Scientology, you can't be around a psychologist, so he's all terrified of the cameras. Right. And I just said, hey guys, can you put the cameras down? And as you can see, if you watch it, it's on YouTube, just put Lori Hodgson Inside Edition. You'll see me going after my son and just saying, Jeremy, I just want to talk to you. And he was totally receptive to that. He just thought it was the Dr. Phil show. And so the cameras were down. I went and talked to my son, and I have to share what really helped me is the producer at breakfast before we went to see my son. He really helped me. I just love that man because he said, Lori, what I see you and Jeremy doing is going like this. You're butting heads. He's saying, you need to go back in and do this, that. And I'm saying, I can't. And so the producer said, tell Jeremy why you can't. And I'm all, so that's what I went with. When I went to see my son, I was going to tell him everything I could why I can't go back into Scientology and do these so-called A to E steps to get back in good standing. I started with, Jeremy, please listen to me. Okay, I am being kept from seeing you. Scientology does not want me to talk to you because they don't want you to know what happened and the truth. And he looked at me and I go, Jeremy, look on your phone right now. They have taken things out of my private folders, my counseling and Scientology that were very private. I had a breast augmentation. I mean, now the world knows, so might as well tell them. It's all over the internet. But I also had a smaller leg that I was ashamed of. My foot was a little smaller. They took those things out of my folders and put them on the internet.
Wow.
And said a lot of sexual libel about me. My son looked at it. I got him to go, Lori Hodgson, Dear Diary. That's the article if anybody wants to look. And he looked and he was like, he couldn't believe what he was reading. I knew he would not like that because he knows how personal that was to me. And you don't do that. When you're in Scientology, you're told that you can't, no one's going to use that against you, or
right.
No one's going to tell the world, if you've left your secret.
Yeah, but this is common, right?
It's very common. Any critic who's left, they possibly can do that. They did that with me. And so Jeremy's reading it, and then his boss comes out and says, Jeremy, I need you in here. And I'm like, oh, my heart just stunk because we were getting somewhere. Mm-hmm. He was starting, his eyes were waking up, and he really wanted to talk to me. And I said, will you please come back? So Inside Addiction can see me. They're in the car with the cameras on. Then we have another truck over there. They're keeping an eye on me for my safety because of being stalked by Scientology. I couldn't go in the building though, and my son went in and I didn't know he would come back out. I just said, please come back out. And he was in there for a half hour. He would come in and out helping the customers because he works at a motorcycle shop, and he would smile at me, reassuring me that he was going to come back. After a half hour, he came back and I hugged him, he hugged me, and we talked for 3 hours.
Oh, that's great.
3 hours. And I told him all the reasons why I can't go back. And I told him, Jeremy, he said, Mom, you need to go back. But then he says, I see why you can't. Mm-hmm. And I said, this isn't your choice. You're being forced to follow the disconnection policy.
Right.
And he said, no, I'm not. I said, let's look at it. Don't you have to handle me or disconnect by that policy? And he said, yes. So he finally saw that it's not his own choice, mm-hmm. that he's being manipulated by the Church of Scientology to not see me. And he told me he loves me. He told me he wants me in his life.
That's
and
great.
That he doesn't know what to do. And I said, let's go meet with them. Let's go meet with your dad. I'm willing to do anything but go back in there and get back in good standing with an organization that is, to me, is criminal. I'm not going to do that.
Well, so, if Jeremy's listening, or watching, call in. Now's your chance to talk to your mom again.
Yes, I would love to talk to you, son. And we can work this out. I can go see your dad with you. We can go down to Scientology together. It shouldn't be a Sophie's choice. You should be able to have your mom and your dad and do Scientology if you want. But you should look at both sides and really see what's going on. Hear what happened to your mom. Look on the internet. Look at Scientology breaks up families. Look at Katie Holmes' story. Right. Look at Nicole Kidman's story. Just get educated. Yeah. It's not just me saying this. There's thousands of people out there that are hurting from this.
No, it's pretty frightening to think that an organization is so powerful that it can wipe out one of the most basic premises of human behavior, which is family. And knowing that how they do it in terms of a form of brainwashing with adolescents, and after our break, we can talk a little bit about some of the cognitive tools they use to break children away from their families, and they're very well-known tools. I can understand why they don't want Scientologists to hang around with psychologists, because it would be we'd have an interesting thing to say about it. But I'm glad you didn't do Dr. Phil. But,
I don't even think he's really a psychologist, is he?
Well, technically yes, but we won't get into that, or we'll end up getting in a lot of trouble.
Well, I'm working on getting on The View right now.
Okay. That should be interesting. So we're going to be taking a break and listening to some service, but please don't go away. This is going to get really interesting. There's more to talk about, and hopefully we'll get some people to call in. Jeremy, please, if you're there, call in now.
This is Richard Dawkins. Doing commercials is unfamiliar territory for me, but I'm inviting you to watch Road to Reason, a skeptic's guide to the 21st century, on Fairfax Public Access every Sunday. Each week, the hosts tackle wishful thinking, religion, pseudoscience, and the harm they cause, with a combination of facts, humor, and community involvement. They challenge believers to defend their faith and give you, the skeptic, a voice. With live call-ins for viewers and streaming on the World Wide Web, there's never a dull moment. Don't wait. Look at them now on Facebook and YouTube, and remember to watch Road to Reason, a skeptic's guide to the 21st century, or there'll be hell to pay.
At NASA right now, scientists and engineers are working every day to help humans learn how to better care for our home, so that we never have to leave. NASA has a fleet of satellites around the planet that keeps track of climate change and studies how humans are affecting the planet. NASA has a ton of geniuses, and all of them are working for a future that has a healthy Earth in it. Like when NASA helped find the hole in our ozone layer so we could fix it before the problem got out of control, NASA is doing its part. We have to do ours. This is our home. To learn more about how NASA is keeping an eye on Earth, visit www.nasa.gov/Earth.
When I was younger, I didn't want to admit I had a serious disease. Because of my diabetes, I lost the sight in my left eye. Misconceptions continue to surround this monster public health issue. But the simple truth is, diabetes can often be prevented and complications avoided. You're not alone. Understand the realities of diabetes and know that you can manage it and lead a full, active life.
There's an alarming trend in the world today. Everywhere you go, people are saying that cinema is dead. But cinema is not dead. My name is Count Simon Gauntley, and on my television program, Count Gauntley's Horrors from the Public Domain, I make it my mission to resurrect forgotten film classics. I promise to dredge the sewers and ford the stagnant streams of film history to ensure that no film is truly lost to the ages. Count Gauntley and FPA, keeping cinema alive! Alive! Alive!
Well, even though Joseph's been gone 18 months, we've made the decision to keep all his things as they were when he was here last. I finally just packed his toothbrush away like 6 months ago. It had been sitting on the counter in the bathroom. And I was cleaning the bathroom one day and I just thought, okay, it's time to put the toothbrush in the medicine cabinet.
So, I just moved in with this family, and it's embarrassing. The little one, he likes to go outside and crawl around in the giant litter box. I don't know what he's doing. I mean, I was born and I knew how to use the litter box. Look at that! That's disgusting! Oh, poop already! You're making me nervous. Oh, okay, I can't look at this anymore. I really hope he grows out of this. for his sake.
Welcome back. If you've just joined us, we're with Lori Hodgson, who is a survivor of Scientology. Unfortunately, her 2 children are still neck deep in it, and that's what we're talking about today. Before we bring Lori back on to the show, I do want to mention that our producer did not reach out to Scientology because, well, they pretty much give the same routine every time and they don't make a lot of sense. So we just decided we weren't going to bother. But if somebody from Scientology wants to call in, you do so. The other thing we're going to be talking about in a few minutes will be, Autumn has some questions for Lori about Sea Org, that's CEA org. It was the organization, the high up organization in Scientology, if you're not familiar. But we do have a call-in from Val of Lakeport. And Val, are you with us? Val, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Val. How are you?
Good.
Good. So you had a question for Lori?
Yes, I do.
Hi, Val.
Hi, I just wanted to ask, what kinds of things has the Church of Scientology done to intimidate you other than the disconnection? What kinds of things have they done to try and influence you not to say anything or to contact the children?
Okay, I can answer that pretty easily. First thing they did is they had a member, his name is John Allender. He's very high up in Scientology, and he threatened me in my parking lot and asked me if I enjoyed beatings. And he also knew my whereabouts because they tracked my flight and knew I went and visited Marty Rathbun a couple days prior. After that, 3 months later, I went and saw Marty again for some help with my kids and the disconnection, and he stalked me, followed me across interstate lines from San Jose, California to Corpus Christi, Texas, along with Mark Warlick, who also works for Scientology. They both showed up with the Squirrel Busters. I was the first one visiting Marty that brought the Squirrel Busters. And they slammed on the door and basically asked Marty for my folder. And he didn't know who it was until Marty got them at the end of the stairs. And when he said it was John Allender, Marty said, "You followed Lori all the way to threaten her and to stalk her." And so they stayed for many days after that, bothering Marty. But the time I was there, I was there for 2 weeks visiting Marty. They took photographs of me out in the ocean. I was on a boating trip with Marty and his dog. And they took pictures of me and then put things on the internet about my breast augmentation and sexual libel. When I got back, I found that out. They've tracked my flights. They have broken into my Facebook. They have tapped my phone. They have done lots of different things to try to get me to shut up because they know I'm making a difference. And my kids are starting to listen. And they want to shut me up. So it's not going to work because I am telling the truth.
Awesome.
Well, did these two men know your son, this John Allender and Warlick?
Yes, they do. Actually, Mark Warlick is the man who's in charge of, he's the director of special affairs. When you have a problem in the church that could be a flap, he is in charge of that. And when my son was being recruited to join the Sea organization, I wrote up to him to stop the recruiting until he was 18. I forbid it, and I wrote up multiple letters to him. And so I also was going to go to court over this disconnection, and he would be in big trouble if that got out. And so they intimidated me by following me along with John Allender to Texas. And John Allender's wife was in charge of my counseling throughout Scientology through most of it. So they were well aware of how I was against it, what I did, what happened, and you know, both of them I've reported both of them to the police, and the authorities have all the information.
And one more question. How do you know that they followed you to Texas from California?
Because I looked out my window and saw them. If you watch the first Worldbuster video, that's my voice down at the bottom. I was on lunch break, and Marty had a 2-story house. I was in the bottom level having lunch. And I looked out the window and saw that it was John Allender and Mark Warlick, and also by seeing the video. But that was my voice when I told Marty to call the police, which we did. And they hung out for a while there, and then they continually came back.
Well, this is not unusual, is it? I mean, this is following and checking flight schedules, and all of these things are pretty typical, aren't they?
Yep.
I mean, it almost makes the NSA look like amateurs. I mean, really.
Right.
I'm much more frightened about Scientology checking on me than NSA, but that's just me. But Autumn, you had some questions about Sea Org, and let's talk a little bit about what Sea Org is and who's some of the people involved with that.
Yeah, Sea Org is fascinating stuff. As far as I'm aware now, the Sea Org is sort of the top dog branch of Scientology, and it's sometimes referred to as the clergy of Scientology. And as Lori, I think you mentioned, you know, kids as young as 12 and 13 are being recruited, and there's a public image that Scientology wants to give out about itself and about the Sea Org, and you can probably see the picture there on your screen if you're watching. This is the image that Scientology wants you to have of it and the Sea Org, its premier unit. You know, our mission is to bring freedom to mankind. We're rescuing a world gone mad. You know, all these really, really great, very militaristic, heroic images. But it sounds like from what you're telling us and from what we're reading, you know, in Lawrence Wright's book, that the real image is more like what you're seeing here on your screen now, which is an organization that goes into sometimes poorer countries looking for disadvantaged children or children that aren't going to put up much of a fight, and signing them up on these billion-year contracts to do things like manual labor, and all kinds of kind of crazy things. And I wonder if you can tell us a little bit more about sort of what goes on in the Sea Org when you're a child. Like I said, I read about some of the manual labor projects. How truthful is that? What's going on? What's the real image?
Well, I only know by my son firsthand. I mean, I've read lots of stories, but firsthand, Jeremy, you know, was told by the recruiters that he wanted a girlfriend really bad. So this is how they got him in. Oh, there's lots of pretty girls there, Jeremy, and you're going to be able to go golfing, and you can take your laptop. We're going to finish your schooling. He was just getting ready to get his driver's license, a big deal for a 15-year-old. And they gave me all these promises after I fought it, but they told me he'd have his schooling, and I was like, I'm going to make sure. He also was told he could come home for his 16th birthday, for Christmas, and call me whenever he wants. All of that was lies. Jeremy was in the Sea Org for 7 months. He only had maybe several days of schooling, which is actually human trafficking. You cannot have a minor there and not be in school, and having him work over 60 hours a week and getting paid $30. Yeah, so sometimes he wouldn't get paid, but most of his checks were $30. He would study Scientology classes and do, I'm not sure what he did there because everything's secretive. Even my own son couldn't tell me. And the reason why he couldn't tell me is that when he wanted to leave, they made my son sign a $3 million gag contract to not discuss what happened there.
So you don't even know what kind of projects he was working on or anything?
Nope, nothing. In fact, I would call him. I talked to my son 5 times in 7 months. When I saw Jeremy just recently with Inside Edition, I said, did you know I called you every day? He was like, you did? I said, yeah. He was kept, and he goes, I got a few of your messages. I go, do you get all these messages that I'm sending you through Facebook, through friends? He goes, a couple. So see, they're keeping a tight ship on him.
Right.
But when he was in the Sea Org, he tried many nights to come home. And that was kept from me. they would only let him call me after he had a counseling session to probably ease his pain a little. But I knew as a mom he wasn't happy. And then he could only talk about, you know, maybe I should donate some money to one of their one of their buildings. And I'm like, you know, we couldn't even talk about regular things. And then when he wanted to leave, he was isolated for 2 weeks. They kept him off the base in a secret location with a security guard. And here's a 16-year-old boy. He doesn't have a cell phone, can't call home, and they're doing interrogative counseling with him and threatening him with a $3 million gag contract. I mean, I wish I could tell you more what goes on in this Sea Org, but my son can't tell me because he signed that gag contract.
Sure.
But now they called him in and told him that it's not legitimate. I'm like, well, Jeremy, when you first told me, you thought it was legitimate. Now they're telling you it isn't. Well, they better tell him that because it was illegal. And you can't do that. But they, you know, they coerce kids, and they think they make them feel like they're saving the planet. Before they join this Sea Org, they're told that the planet's going to blow up in 2 years. And you've got to save your parents. You've got to save the world. I mean, they put heavy pressure on them.
Right.
And whatever they say, it works. My kids were not real diehard Scientologists. They were motorcycling with me. We went snowboarding. I mean, we did more things out of Scientology than in. And after a couple events they go to, they're brainwashed like that. I mean, it's scary. I want parents to know it happens.
Yeah, the cognitive, the damage that's done, and some of the techniques they use. Jenna Miscavige, who's the niece of the, I wanted to say
the big
owner,
man,
the big guy, right? Her book talked a lot about the emotional abuse that went on, and of course, teenagers, adolescents, as their brains are not fully developed yet. Their frontal lobes are not fully developed, and that's the part of the brain that we can make do a lot more critical thinking, think about the future, how this action causes another action. And by isolating these kids and preventing them from talking to their parents or their friends who may have left Scientology, this is incredibly damaging. And we know this is actually kind of a torture technique that is used when trying to recruit people into political organizations and so on. But there does seem to be in the news lately, there's been some news on suicides among young people within Scientology. Can you speak on that a little bit? Because that's extremely disturbing as well. You know,
personally, I didn't know the people, but as a mom, I can relate because, I mean, look at what it's doing to the children or the people that are in that can't see their family. I mean, they're afraid to leave because they're told then they're not going to have their eternity. And that's what they believe. They believe Scientology is their freedom, their answers to everything. But they've lost their family. But they want to be with their family. And so they get to a point where they don't know what to do. And then they might be seeing some people getting harassed and being threatened. And I mean, I think they don't know what to do. And maybe that's their only way out. And it worries me because, like, Tori Christensen told me that there's a lot of younger adult children that have committed suicide. She would have more of those details, but I really feel it might have been torn with the family because, you know, and it worries me because I just would never want to see anything like that happen, and I hope it ends and this whole thing gets abolished because it's just, I hate it.
Do you think it's possible to undermine what Scientology is doing? I mean, how do we combat this organization, which seems to be all powerful in many ways? I mean, even the IRS backed down, and the government has backed down on seeing what their real activities tend to be, especially in the treatment of children and almost holding people as slaves, as you mentioned. And so do you have any thoughts on that?
I think we're seeing it a lot more now with the lawsuits against Scientology. The Monique Rathbun lawsuit is really big. Actually, David Miscavige got deposed, so he will have to, what I've heard lately is he will have to show up for court and testify. And he'll be caught on the stand lying. I mean, he's going to be lying because what he did is true. And I think more people are getting braver to share their story and have the courage. And I think that's turning it around. I think in the last two years, it's just been a huge development of exposing their abuses, and people aren't as afraid anymore. I told my son, I go, Jeremy, if I was lying, don't you think they'd sue me? They have billions of dollars.
Right.
Yeah.
And he goes, you're right, Mom. I go, yeah, I'm not lying. People are sharing their stories and they're sharing the truth. And that's what we all need to keep doing that. And that's what I encourage everyone to do. Share your story. Be a witness if you can. I've been a part of the Squirrel Busters. I can totally be a witness there. I'm willing to do whatever I can to share the truth and what really happened.
So what about people like Tom Cruise and Kirstie Alley who sing the praises of Scientology and how it is saving the world, against madness or the anyway, which all seems pretty screwy, but how much damage are they doing by encouraging more and more people to join into Scientology and not even taking any responsibility for the kinds of stories that you're telling and others are telling?
Well, if they're aware of the stories, which they have to be. When I was in Scientology, I wasn't. They keep you from it. If you get an article, you aren't allowed to look at it. As a Scientologist, you're so brainwashed that anything critical of the church, you have to bring in to the person in charge called an ethics officer. And he makes the decision. Yes. Oh, don't read that because that's going to mess your head up. It's all lies. These are just critics. They're trying to do in Scientology. That's what I was told. So I don't know if Tom Cruise or Kirstie Alley is allowed to read anything or if they have, but if they are aware of it, I think it's sick that they're still promoting it if they know what's going on. They've either got stuff, I don't know. I could never do that. Now that I know what's going on, there is no way you couldn't pay me $1 billion to stay in there. I don't know that answer. I know Leah Remini just left, and she's, because of the policies that she didn't like with the church, and she's speaking out. And then Kirstie Alley's calling her a liar and a bigot. Just like they're calling me a liar. They're calling me a liar and a bigot.
I wanted to ask you.
And I'm like,
I'm sorry. I just wanted to ask you really quickly before we run out of time, if you could tell us about your friend Karen, her story about her and her son. Yes,
Karen is a really good friend of mine, Karen De La Caria, and she lost her son a couple years ago. He died. And unfortunately, she found out about it on Facebook. And as a mother, I can relate. I found out about my son having a serious motorcycle accident on Facebook, but not to the extreme of losing your child. My heart just goes out to her. But, she was really high up in Scientology. She worked with L. Ron Hubbard, and she was a very qualified auditor, counselor. Right. And she started speaking out about the abuses that she saw, and they made her son disconnect from her. And basically, he wasn't allowed to call her. He was very sick. He had, I can't remember what was wrong, but he needed medical care, and he died. And if his mom would have known, she would have been there in a minute, but she wasn't allowed to go near him. I forgot. I hope that doesn't happen to anybody else, but I feel sorry for her. And all because of disconnection. She wasn't even allowed to see her son at the morgue.
Lori,
that's really sick.
I just wanted to break in for a minute. We are running out of time, and we actually have your brother on the line.
Oh, great.
Yes.
Okay.
So are you there?
Hi.
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 Hi, Lori.
Hi.
I just wanted to tell everybody who's watching that Lori is really the tip of the knife for so many others. There's Her story is tragic, but tragically not unique. And there's a great community of critics and people who are available to offer support. So if anybody's listening today who is maybe sitting on the fence or something, know that they wouldn't be leaving alone, and they're not walking into the world, you know, with no support. We're here to support not just Lori and her family, but everybody.
That's great.
And that's all. I just wanted to tell Lori we love her.
Thank you.
And hope this ends soon.
So do we.
Thank you for calling in.
Thank you.
In fact,
Thank you, Paul.
if we can talk a little bit about the support Paul just mentioned. Paul, is that, if I got it right, what is there for people who have stepped out of Scientology, who are getting the worst of it? The emotional issues obviously are big, especially if families are being broken up. What kind of support is out there for people who either have left or are thinking about leaving Scientology, or who have lost a child or a brother or sister or parent to Scientology?
There's a lot of support, and where I found most of mine is on Facebook. There's disconnection groups to join, you know, you can reach out to Mike Rinder has a really good blog, and Marty Raspin has a really good blog. Anonymous totally helps support ex-Scientologists, and there's just so many. If anybody needs some more recommendations, please Facebook me, Lori Hodgson. I have the picture of my kids and I can get you hooked up with a lot of groups that I'm on Facebook. That it's a great support system. I think there's more people out of Scientology that I have met around the world that I ever knew in.
Well,
and it's
awesome.
international. I have friends all over.
Well, that's encouraging, because the emotional toll has got to be tremendous. I mean, I can't imagine not seeing someone I love for over 3 years because someone's stopping them from seeing me. I mean, I can understand being, in different parts of the world, that happens, but to be just told you cannot see your child or your brother or sister or parent, it just is astounding that this goes on.
I mean, I know, I can't even call my son and say, how's your Sunday going?
Right.
How was your day at work? I'm robbed of that. And he wants that too, and other families, and it's wrong. And I just think all of us need to keep speaking out. I wanted to say xenu.net, xenu.net is a very good place to get information and some help there. So.
And we'll be putting these on our Facebook as well. We also have Rob from Richmond, I believe, on the line. Rob, are you there? Did we lose Rob?
No, I'm here.
Oh, there you are.
Wait for her to stop.
Welcome to the show.
Okay, maybe we just have a lag on my end. I still hear her talking, see if maybe it's lag. Lori, I just wanted to ask if any of the roadblocks that you've run into while you've been trying to rescue your family have been because Scientology is classified as religion as opposed to just a cult. So I don't know if either with police or lawyers, if any advice, if people have peeled away from helping you because it's religion.
Actually, I have a lot of help with the authorities. I work with the top authorities in San Jose and the top authorities here in Lake County. In fact, I was just in the paper, and there's a statement, it's called the Record B, and it says, Mother goes national with claims against Scientology, and the Lakeport Police Department are in here. And they gave a statement how vigilant they are in watching me and keeping my family safe. So people do not need to be afraid of going to the police. They will help you. They are. I always let the police know when I'm going to visit my kids. They know my whereabouts at all times.
So there are options for people to go out and get help and not feel the fear, because that intimidation, that fear intimidation, is really what's keeping a lot of people in. And it's amazing that in today's world, with as much information that we can get to through Facebook and emails and cell phones, that people are still being kept as prisoners in seclusion and away from those who truly do love them.
Well, and I wonder how much maybe can you say, if Jeremy is watching right now, can you let him know, like, do you have anything you want to say to him? Do you want to let him know the support that's out there? What kinds of things can he do if he is thinking about getting out?
You know what I told him? He asked me, what do I do, Mom? And I just said, you have to have the courage to just say you want your family. I mean, it's all about and I think, you know, if he starts, I told him to go on the internet in front of me. Remember, I told him to look at that article. Hopefully he'll start doing that and reading and seeing it's not just his family. Mm-hmm. I sent him Jenna Miscavige Hill's book to read. Hopefully he read it. Because it's not just his mom saying this. There's thousands of people. Right. And I just think looking at both sides is such an important thing that in Scientology we're kept from. We have to basically we weren't even allowed to watch the news if it was critical about Scientology. You were kept in the dark. And my best advice, son, if you're watching, is to look at both sides. And I love you, I support you. I will do whatever I can to help. And in this disconnection, you will have so many friends. All my friends are your friends, and we will all help you. And the police will help you. I mean, you're well protected. So, and I don't want you to lose your dad just because he's in Scientology. Let's all be a family. Let's get your dad to have the courage to say, I'm not going to do this. Mm-hmm. That's what I want.
Well, Jeremy, I hope you are listening. You have a very brave mother, and she obviously is very dedicated to you. And you know, do take the time to look out there and find out what the other side is. And any organization that is this secretive and uses threats and isolation to keep you within that organization, there's something wrong there.
Definitely.
That if you're not allowed to use your own cognitive abilities to make a decision, and I mean, you're young, and it can be pretty scary, but there's certainly support, and your mother, I know, would love to have you back, and hopefully maybe this will help. I hope so. And Lori, you're an amazingly strong woman, and kudos to you. And I hope this really turns out well.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on, Lori. We really, really appreciate sharing your story with us.
Please come back and join us next week.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining Road to Reason, and please make a donation for us.